Hey everyone, this is Christine with LeftSideArt. Today I have a quick layout that I did for a monthly challenge. This challenge is run by Dina Wakely through the rangerinc.com website, and every month she puts out a different topic, and you have until about the middle of the month, I think it's about the second Thursday of each month, to submit your item. And the way that you do that is by hashtagging show us your media. I'll have a link to this blog post in the description below. And the rules are basically you have to use some piece of her product line within your layout and try to adhere to the topic. I'm adding some texture and some colors with this gel plate, and this is a Dina Wakely stencil, to my background. And anything that I want to take away from the gel plate before I apply the gel plate down to my background, I'm just using additional tag that I had nearby. With the thought of that I was going to use this tag in my layout, but I ended up using it not in the way I originally expected. So anyway, I'm just using regular craft paint for my layout. This is, I think, by Art Deco, or Deco Art, excuse me. And then this comb I'm using, it was just a couple of dollars. It came as a 2-pack from Michael's, but you can just use the back end of your paintbrush or your finger to apply some, various designs in your paint. Now, I didn't let my blue paint on this gel plate dry completely. I probably should have just wiped it off because, of course, applying orange makes it a little bit of a muddy color because they are complements to each other. But it didn't turn out too muddy, so I just went with it. It was okay for the look that I was going for. And as you can see, applying this gel plate to my background just gives it some different interest that you wouldn't normally get from just applying ink or paint through stencils straight to your background. And it wipes off really easily with a baby wipe or a damp cloth. Same thing with the stencils. So now I'm using a cut and dry sponge. This comes in either 8x10 or 9x12 size that you can just cut up with a pair of scissors to whatever size that you want. And it makes it nice to apply paint through stencils onto your background without the paint smudging underneath the stencils. I think sometimes whenever you use a paintbrush to apply paint through a stencil onto your paper, it kind of creates a muddied look, like the paint seeps underneath the stencil. Maybe the bristles are, just kind of sliding underneath the stencil a bit. So this cut and dry sponge, it just keeps it kind of flat on top of the stencil and works out pretty well. It's also really cheap. I'll have a link to it in the description below. And now I'm adding my favorite things in life, which is some of the Tim Holtz tissue paper and scraps from an old book. I'm applying gel medium to the underside of these pieces stacked like glue, and also to the top parts of these pieces so that they become less porous. This just helps whenever you go to add paint or ink to the tops of these pieces, it doesn't absorb as much and just makes it a little bit of a slicker surface. It's definitely optional and something you try with or without and see what happens with the paint and the ink, which you like better. This little brush I'm using is also by Tim Holtz, and it comes in a 3-pack, 3 different sizes. And what's nice about it is that the bristles are kind of created in a loop. So it's not just one flat set of bristles. And what this does is it helps you apply either gel medium or gesso, for instance, very thinly to your layout. And it just very convenient. Now I am adding some black gesso through a stencil, the same stencil I've been using, so everything's somewhat cohesive. I'm using a palette knife, and anytime that I apply the gesso through the stencil, I flip the stencil over and just kind of get rid of the rest of the product onto the background. And then I just applied some of the gesso with my palette knife straight onto my background. I'm trying a lot of these techniques out for the first time, especially as you can see there's a lot of white space left on my layout. Usually I would apply either a color or tissue paper or something to my entire background before really starting on my layout. And I've been reading one of Dina Wakely's art books, and this is one of the techniques that she goes through. The other technique that she discusses in her art book is trying to use repetition throughout your piece, and this is what I'm doing with the silhouette stamp, also by Dina Wakley, and I'll have a link to her art book below as well. What I wanted to do was, for this theme, I wanted to try to add more of me into my art, because one thing I definitely struggle with is finding my own style and feeling like I have a style and sticking with it. But you know, I always like to try new techniques like this because I think it just helps improve your overall portfolio of skills that you can apply to whatever it is you create in the end. And this tag that I'm cutting out, it didn't work out the way I wanted to. It was just too busy for my background, so I ended up using it as a mask. And this is one of the techniques I think Diane Reevely uses, and I've always wanted to give it a try, and I figured why not. I first tried a blending tool with some archival ink. It just wasn't getting dark enough, so I got some black acrylic paint and some more of that cut and dry sponge and just went around my silhouette and did this through all of the silhouettes I had stamped on my background. This black also helps tie into my background because I did add some of that black gesso, you know, through the stencil. And that black gesso dries matte, and so it kind of matches the same sheen as this black acrylic craft paint. I also whisked out the black paint around the silhouettes to the right a little bit just to give it a little more interest. They don't all have to be perfect. They're definitely different, and you know, different amount of black going around them, and the one silhouette all the way to the left, I think I kind of cut the one leg off, but you know, it happens. Now these little sheets that I'm going to use of stickers and word are from Jane Davenport's line, and you can use whatever you like. I mean, I have materials from all different artists and different product lines through various companies. I say grab whatever you like and whatever you're going to use and use it. And I could have easily used plain washi tape and just drew on it to get these simple lines, but sometimes it's nice to have something pre-made, and I think it helps you know, with some of the creativity. Now I am going through and just adding some more dimension. These are flat-sided bubbles. They're concave on the top with a flat back, and they're just these little pieces I happen to have from working on other projects, and I just felt like the page needed something more. Now one of my other favorite techniques is adding embellishments to my pages. And I try to keep them regular, rather low profile, especially in a journal book where you are going to be closing it. If I was using a mixed media board or a canvas to do this layout, I may have gotten a bit more bulky with my embellishments, but for this one I just wanted something simple scattered throughout to kind of, you know, tie everything together and give it just a little extra something to look at. That about wraps this up. I hope you've enjoyed this, and definitely check out the challenge in the link below so you can join next month. I will catch you next time. Thank you. Bye.